Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ending. I am Tunde Alabi. The UK economy has been recording positive outlook in the last 1 year. The economy has shown strong signs of recovery, with major sectors showing positive growth trends. Ben Television Friska Gobot conducted this report on the impact of the economic growth on cost of living.
Things are more expensive, definitely. Because when I first arrived here, the economy was really good. You know, standard of living wise, I thought it was pretty good.
It's like every year things goes up, and I just think it should get to a certain amount of things should go up every year. It should be set as a target. You know, it should stay at that amount so that everything going up. It's like it just.
The recent change in the impact in the economy in the country has been really positive. So much so that the NewTech that we work for is called Newham Training Education Centre, has increased its value to the community in that besides just owning the training organisation, we have 3 nurseries, a children's centre, and we now have the pop-up shop which you are present at the moment.
The thing is, I haven't really seen any change to my standard of living, and I haven't really felt the impact of the country's growth.
London is a problem, isn't it? Because it's overcrowded, and when you got to look about it, it's like homeless people, and everybody trying to get somewhere to live, and the more people that come in, the less housing, and then the balance, the people living here, you know, people that are living in the country, doesn't matter if they're from any country or from the world, but they come, that's good. They're safe.
Outbreak of Ebola virus disease in some West African countries. The disease caused by the Ebola virus as of now has not got a cure, but does not also mean automatic death. Victims of the virus in some West African countries have continued to rise, with countries where there have been reported cases struggling to contain the spread of the virus. The 2 countries, Liberia and Sierra Leone, where the outbreak has had significant impact, have both declared national emergency on the virus with the aim of containing the spread. Several governments around the world have been expressing concern about the spread of the contagious virus to their countries. The UK Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond has said that Britain is gravely concerned but is prepared to deal with any reported case of the incident in the country.
Well, we look at any emerging threats around the world that potentially have implications for the UK. Clearly, this outbreak of this virus is a cause for concern. There may be British nationals in the area. We know that there's a lot of people travel from West Africa to the UK and vice versa. So it's sensible for us to meet together, to listen to what the experts have to say, to listen to their advice, and then to decide among ministerial colleagues what action, if any, we need to take to make sure we keep the UK safe. That there is a threat that has been identified which we need to respond to. Now, this is happening all the time. Terrorist threats from different parts of the world, disease threats, even economic threats that we look at, we evaluate, and we set out a sensible and proportionate response to them, and that's what we will do today. I don't want to speculate on what those measures might be. I want to listen to the scientific evidence, get the advice of the experts about what we should do, look at the benefits that would flow from action and the costs that action would impose in terms of any restrictions that it imposes on what people intend to do, and then make a properly considered recommendation to the Prime Minister for the action that we should take. But we will do whatever we need to do to protect the UK from any risk that could arise from this outbreak.
Patrick Sawyer, a Liberian man who contracted the deadly virus from his sister in Liberia, collapsed in Lagos, Nigeria during his official visit to the country and died a few days later. Sawyer became the first reported incident of the Ebola virus in the Africa's most populous country.
The patient was subjected to thorough medical evaluation, where laboratory investigations were also carried out. His blood sample was taken to the advanced laboratory at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Luth, which confirmed the diagnosis of Ebola virus disease. This result has since been corroborated by other laboratories outside Nigeria. Despite the urgent specialized barrier nursing care provided for the patient in a Lagos hospital, and as well as intensive support therapy, the patient unfortunately passed away in the early hours of today. The following specific measures have so far been taken. All the passengers that the patient came in contact with have been traced and are now being investigated. In line with the World Health Organization international health regulations and in keeping with international best practice, all ports of entry to Nigeria, including airports, seaports, and land borders, have been placed on red alert.
Nigerians have been expressing fears and concern over the incident. The government has, however, assured the citizens that late Sawyer, the carrier of the Ebola virus in Nigeria, had not entered the country before it was contained.
I think we now know that the man had Ebola. It's no more a suspicion. Clinically, the clinical picture depicted a viral hemorrhagic fever, and carrying out testing, we were able to pick a filovirus because we are sure of the primers that we used. So only what we are waiting for is to find out which of the Ebola virus, which of the filoviruses. Is it Ebola virus? Is it Marburg virus? They are all equally deadly. So whichever way it is, we know the man is having a deadly viral infection. And from the brief history, we learned that the man collapsed while coming out of the flight.
Here in Nigeria?
Here in Nigeria, before being rushed on the wheel to a facility. So from that picture, the man had been incubating the virus. And only God knows how far the virus and particles had gone in the organs and the systems. But the following day, when they now started looking at the picture, so they discovered that it was progressing. Because the second day of the admission, they noticed hematuria, they noticed diarrhea, and diarrhea coupled with hematuria, they are two bad signs. And these are the signs that have been associated with Ebola viral disease. This is a firm confirmation that we had the virus brought to us.
Meanwhile, colleagues of Dr. Ken Brantley, an American doctor who tested positive to the virus from working with patients in Liberia, have been commenting on the development.
I got to know Kent first when he interviewed JPS, and then we have been very close over the last 4 years. He finished his residency and fellowship here in June of 2013, and then left last October for his assignment in Liberia. Kent did the 3-year family medicine residency and the year of fellowship in preparation for his departure. Kent accepted an appointment with Samaritan's Purse with World Medical Mission, a 2-year postgraduate fellowship to prepare him for what he anticipates will be a career as a medical missionary in underserved communities in the majority world. Kent's assignment was to Liberia, and he has felt and continues to feel a deep calling to be in that place and to care for those people. I got off the phone with Kent about 30 minutes ago, and he told me that he wants everyone to understand that he knew when he went to Liberia that there were many diseases there for which there are no immunizations and for which there are no cures. He did not intentionally go into an area with Ebola. Ebola arrived in Liberia after the Brantleys arrived, and as the epidemic began to unfold, Kent found himself in a very difficult circumstance. He was asked by the hospital, Elwa Hospital, where he is serving in Monrovia, Liberia, to serve as the medical director of the isolation unit for Ebola. As you're aware, the attempts to contain the virus have not been successful, as with past epidemics, and so the virus is spreading in the capital in Liberia. The hospital where Kent is working has worked very, very closely with all the authorities to develop a state-of-the-art isolation unit, which Kent directed. Kent is confident that he followed all of the appropriate protocols and never breached protocols. So the source of this infection is uncertain at this time, but he took great care for himself and for the others under his supervision.
The Ebola virus, which was first discovered in 1976 in Sudan and Democratic Republic of Congo, has now killed more than 670 people in its recent outbreak in Sierra Leone and Liberia. Symptoms begin with fever, muscle pain, and sore throat. It then escalates to internal and external bleeding. As the world continues to condemn the death in Gaza, Israel has recalled 16,000 reserve soldiers to bolster its military capability in its battle against Hamas. The ongoing Hamas-Israel crisis is the longest so far since the hostilities between the two ended in 2008. Ben Television reviews the crisis between Hamas and Israel in this report. The recent escalation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict began in 2014 following a series of events. Those events included the collapse of an American-sponsored peace talks, attempts by rival Palestinian factions to form a coalition government, the alleged kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teenagers, the subsequent kidnapping and murder of Palestinian teenagers, and increased rocket attacks on Israel by Hamas militants.
But the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, their right to justice, must also be recognized. And put yourself in their shoes. Look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of their own. Living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements, not just of those young people, but their parents, their grandparents, every single day. It's not just when settler violence against Palestinians goes unpunished. It's not right to prevent Palestinians from farming their lands or restricting a student's ability to move around the West Bank or displace Palestinian families from their homes. Neither occupation nor expulsion is the answer. Just as Israelis built a state in their homeland, Palestinians have a right to be a free people in their own land. You know, I'm going off script here for a second, but before I came here, I met with a group of young Palestinians from the age of 15 to 22. And talking to them, they weren't that different from my daughters. They weren't that different from your daughters or sons. I honestly believe that if any Israeli parent sat down with those kids, they'd say, I want these kids to succeed. I want them to prosper. I want them to have opportunities just like my kids do. I believe that's what Israeli parents would want for these kids if they had a chance to listen to them and talk to them.
On 8 July 2014, the Israel Defense Forces IDF launched Operation Protective Edge in the Gaza Strip.
Free! Free! Palestine! 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 From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! 1, 2, 3, 4! Occupation no more! 5, 6, 7!
kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teenagers in mid-June 2014, the IDF initiated Operation Bova's Keeper in search of them. During the operation, in the following 11 days, Israel's military killed 5 to 10 Palestinians in clashes and arrested between 350 and 600 Palestinians, including nearly all of Hamas's West Bank leaders. On the night of 6 July, an Israeli strike killed 7 Hamas militants. In response, Hamas militants increased rocket attacks on Israel. By 7th July, Hamas militants had fired 100 rockets from Gaza at Israel territory, and the Israeli Air Force had bombed several sites in Gaza. Early on 8 July, Israel Air Force bombed 50 targets in the Gaza Strip. Israel's military thwarted a militant infiltration from the sea. That same day, Hamas declared that all Israelis had become legitimate targets and insisted that Israel end all attacks on Gaza.
Hamas uses the residents of Gaza as a human shield and is bringing disaster on the residents of Gaza, and therefore the responsibility for any harm done to the civilians in Gaza, which we regret, the responsibility is that of Hamas and its partners and them alone.
On 13 July, the Israeli military reported that more than 1,300 Israeli attacks had taken place, while more than 800 rockets were fired from Gaza into Israel. The next day, July 14th, Egypt announced a ceasefire initiative. The Israeli government declared acceptance for the proposal and temporarily stopped hostilities the morning of 15 July. However, all Palestinian factions announced they had not been consulted on the reported Egyptian initiatives and were informed of the supposed proposal via the media, including Palestinian President Abbas. Hamas rejected it in its current form, as did other Palestinian factions. On 16 July, Hamas and Islamic Jihad offered Israel a 10-year truce with 10 conditions. The conflict is the deadliest military operation to have taken place in Gaza since the Gaza War of 2008 to 2009.
And to say no to the illegal occupation of Israel. Right, we are here today in front of 10 Downing Street to make a very clear message to our Prime Minister and to the silent accomplices of the world, politicians, in the international community. We are very disappointed at your disgraceful silence. Shame on you! We are joined by tens and thousands of people, and we are increasing. Today, we are hoping to have a 1 million man march for the freedom of Palestine.
Your visit gave us an opportunity to try to find a way to advance peace between Israelis and Palestinians. My new government was sworn in 2 days ago. I know there have been questions regarding what the policy of the new government will be towards peace with the Palestinians. So let me be clear. Israel remains fully committed to peace and to the solution of 2 states for 2 peoples. We extend our hands in peace and in friendship to the Palestinian people. I hope that your visit, along with the visit of Secretary of State Kerry, will help us turn a page in our relations with the Palestinians. Let us sit down at the negotiating table. Let us put aside all preconditions. Let us work together to achieve the historic compromise that will end our conflict once and for all.
At least 1,200 Palestinians were killed and 6,470 were injured. Among the dead were 251 children, 93 women, and 50 elderly. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimated that as of 28 July, 795 of those killed were civilians, of whom 347 were women or children.
The temporary weekend pause in fighting brought a brief respite to war-weary civilians. It also revealed how much the massive Israeli assault has devastated the lives of the people of Gaza. we saw scenes of indiscriminate destruction. Some described it as a man-made hurricane, a whole neighborhood reduced to debris, rubble, blocks of flattened apartment buildings, scores of bodies still buried under mountains of twisted wreckage. The death toll keeps climbing. The fighting has claimed well over 1,000 Palestinian lives, most of them civilians, hundreds of them children. Hamas rocket fire has claimed the lives of 3 Israeli civilians. At least 16 Palestinian civilian deaths and more than 200 injuries came as a result of an appalling assault on a UN school in Beit Hanun. We were sheltering families, women and children who had sought refuge from the fighting. Ongoing hostilities have prevented establishing conclusive responsibility. It is imperative to do so and to have accountability for this outrageous crime. Indeed, there must be accountability and justice for crimes committed by all sides.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Netanyahu Benjamin has blamed Hamas for all the civilian death in the crisis.
We ask the population, leave. We ask them again and again. We call them up, we text them messages, we give leaflets. We ask them to leave. Hamas says, and some of them do leave, Hamas says, don't leave. We forbid you to leave. So Hamas is using these people, these civilians, as a human shield.
Hamas leaders also have denied any involvement in hiding weapons among civilians or civilian designated places. From politics to economy, business, technology, the totality of what makes man is what we bring to you here on this Sponge. We give you the information that you need, from business to economy to politics to technology. And that's all we do here on this Sponge, from the beginning to the end. And that is why we are here. Keep watching this Sponge from Ben Television. And today I'll be your host. And this is how far we can go in this week of News Roundup. My name is Tony Alabi. Thank you for being part of it. See you again. Bye.